You ever stop and think about how weird our bodies are? I mean, they're supposed to be these masterpieces of nature, right? But then you've got aching backs, wisdom teeth that don't fit. We're just full of these strange, kind of frustrating quirks. Well, today we're going to dive into exactly that, the amazing flaws of the human body, and what they tell us about our wild evolutionary story.
Okay, let's kick things off with something pretty much everyone has dealt with at some point: back pain. I mean, seriously, why is it so incredibly common? It's one of the top reasons people go to the doctor. But here's the kicker. You look at our primate cousins, like gorillas, and they almost never have this problem. So what's the deal with our spines?
And here's the answer. It's all about the engineering. You see, our ancestors, just like gorillas, walked on all fours. Their spine was a simple C shape, which actually worked perfectly, kind of like a suspension bridge, right? But then we stood up, and evolution had to scramble. It basically had to jam this S-shaped curve into the design to keep us from falling over. It was a quick fix, and honestly, our skeletons are still trying to catch up, leaving us with a design that's just, well, prone to pain.
And this gets to the absolute heart of it all. You have to understand, evolution isn't some grand architect aiming for perfection. No way. It's more like a tinker in a garage, just patching things up with whatever's lying around. It's all about being good enough to survive and have kids. So our bodies, they're not some polished, flawless machine. They're a brilliant but super messy collection of compromises.
All right, so let's dig into that first big compromise. It all started with one single game-changing move. Our ancestors decided to stand up and walk on two legs. And that one simple act, oh man, it set off this huge chain reaction of problems that we are still dealing with today.
Yeah, that S-shaped spine was really just the tip of the iceberg. Suddenly, the entire weight of our torso is pressing down on two little points, our knees and ankles. Think about that pressure. It's a huge engineering challenge, and evolution is still trying to figure it out, even a million years later. This is why we get so many joint problems, and it leads to another kind of weird issue: hernias. So what even is a hernia? Well, you can think of it like a blowout. Because we're standing upright, there's all this crazy pressure inside our abdomen pushing down. And sometimes that pressure can literally shove part of our intestines through a weak spot in our muscle wall. Ouch.
The best analogy is a worn-out tire. Your abdominal wall is the tire, and our upright posture is like constantly pumping it with too much air. If there's a weak spot, it's going to bulge out. And that bulge is the hernia, a really painful problem that more often than not means you're going in for surgery.
Okay, so it's not just about walking upright. Our bodies are also cluttered with leftover parts. Stuff that was super useful for our ancestors, but for us, they're basically just ticking time bombs. Let's take a look at some of these useless relics from our past.
And here are the two big ones you've probably heard of. First up, wisdom teeth. For our ancestors who were chewing on tough, raw plants all day, these extra molars were essential. But once we figured out cooking, our food got softer, our jaws literally got smaller, and now there's just no room for them. They come in sideways, they get stuck, they cause a ton of pain, and then there's the appendix. It probably helped with digesting certain plants way back when, but for us, it's mostly famous for getting infected and trying to kill you. Not exactly a great feature.
All right, now this next part is where things get really weird and fascinating. We're going to look at some of evolution's strangest compromises. I'm talking about major flaws that are literally built right into some of our most important systems.
In fact, let's do a little experiment right now. You can see a flaw in your own body with this. Go ahead and close your right eye. Now, with your left eye, stare at the plus sign you see on the screen. Just focus on that plus and slowly start moving your head closer to the screen. Don't take your eye off the plus. Did it disappear? At some point, that little minus sign should have just poof, vanished. That's your blind spot. It's there all the time, but your brain is so good at papering over the cracks that you never ever notice it. It's literally inventing information to fill in that gap. So the big question is, why do we even have a gap in our vision?
Well, the answer is kind of ridiculous. It's because our eyes are wired backwards. Seriously, the light-sensing cells face the wrong way. So the optic nerve, the cable to the brain, has to punch a hole through the retina to get out. That hole is your blind spot. Now look at the giant squid. Its eye has a much smarter design. The wiring is tucked neatly behind the light-sensing cells. No hole, no blind spot, it's just better.
And speaking of compromises, this might be the biggest one of all. Evolution basically painted itself into a corner. On one hand, we needed big brains to be smart. That means big heads. But on the other hand, to walk upright efficiently, we needed narrow hips. See the problem? Big head, small exit.
This massive evolutionary tug-of-war is why human childbirth is so uniquely difficult and, frankly, dangerous compared to the rest of the animal kingdom.
You want another design flaw that can literally kill you? Let's talk about our throat. The tube for air and the tube for food share the same entrance. It's like having a highway where the on-ramp and off-ramp are the same lane. One wrong move, one little piece of food going down the wrong pipe, and you're choking. You know, birds and snakes, they don't have this problem. They have a much safer setup.
So here's a really interesting twist. A lot of these things we call flaws aren't really flaws at all. They were actually perfect for a world that doesn't exist anymore. This whole idea is called mismatch theory, and the core of it is simple. We're basically running Stone Age hardware in a 21st century world.
And our metabolism is the perfect example. For pretty much all of human history, finding your next meal was the biggest challenge. So having a slow metabolism that was great at storing fat, that was a massive advantage. It kept you alive. But today, we're surrounded by food. And that same life-saving feature now makes it super easy to gain weight. Our bodies are basically running on old software that hasn't been updated.
And hey, what about losing your hair? It might feel like a major flaw, but evolutionarily speaking, it's pretty harmless. And it's incredibly common, especially for guys. I mean, look at this. About half of all men have noticeable hair loss by the time they're 40. It doesn't really hurt our health. It's just one of those strange, persistent little quirks baked into our DNA.
Oh, and the list of these mismatches just goes on and on. Our sinuses, they're a mess, constantly getting infected because they were designed for a different kind of face. Our jaws, they've actually gotten weaker because we eat soft, cooked food now. And get this, unlike most other animals, we can't even make our own vitamin C. We completely lost that ability somewhere along the way.
And while we're on the topic of weaknesses, let's talk teeth. We get one adult set, that's it. You lose one, it's gone for good. Now a crocodile, if it breaks a tooth, no big deal. It can grow a new one, up to 50 times. 50! It's a pretty humbling reminder that maybe we're not the pinnacle of design in every category.
So, okay, after hearing about all these flaws, all these weird compromises and useless spare parts, it's pretty easy to think the human body is just badly designed. But that's not the right way to look at it. Not at all.
Because here's the most important takeaway. These aren't failures. They're more like scars. They're the stories of our entire species' journey, written right into our bones and our DNA. Every aching back, every blind spot, it's proof of a problem our ancestors solved. It's evidence of just how tough and resilient we really are.
And that leaves us with one last, kind of mind-bending question. See, evolution isn't over. It's happening right now. Our modern lives are putting all sorts of new pressures on our bodies. So imagine our descendants, hundreds of thousands of years from now. What flaws are they going to see when they look back at us? What strange quirks of our modern bodies will be their wisdom teeth or bad backs?